Well, it's like a weird complex. Like women were always like go out of their way to tell you when they have a toxic ex. And they'll like, I've had so many girls on my show say, I had a toxic, abusive, this ex. And it's just to the point where I sometimes question the credibility because I've just had so many people do it. And men don't come forward like that. If anything, like I've had guys pull me aside after the show and tell me a story, but they don't come on usually forward.
I do agree with that. I do agree with what you're saying. But I do feel like it feels as though men, because sex is so accessible, they don't have to treat you that well because they know they've conquered you. They know that they're bonded to you. Like if when a woman has sex with a guy, she's bonded to the guy. So
then girls wouldn't leave. Girls leave 70 to 80% of the time.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true.
But sometimes they're leaving for someone else. Well, sometimes, it's another guy that they're pursuing for whatever reason, an ex-boyfriend. So sometimes it's not for those.
But my thing is, like, I just don't think we should believe women without evidence. And if you haven't pressed charges, like, I'm sorry, I don't know you. Like, you need to press charges. And like, if somebody was punching me in the face, I would press charges. I don't understand why you wouldn't.
It's easier said than done sometimes.
It's not necessarily.
You can't
for women it's pretty easy. The law's on your side. For men it's not. It's harder for men.
Yeah, but sometimes it can be hard. Like you can't. I feel like those are subjects you can't really speak on because mentally you're. What if that guy mentally breaks you down to a point where he says that, boom, if you go to the police, I'll know. Like, you just can't speak on certain things like that. Like, it's easier said than done. Like, it will take up a lot for women to pick up that courage to leave somebody that's mentally abused them and physically abused them and control them to a certain extent where they're even afraid to. But
my thing is, women will go on public platforms and destroy a man's reputation. They know.
Yeah, I feel like that's wrong.
So I'm saying, like, if you're not willing to go to the police and you come on a public platform where people know you, they know who you dated. It's not fair that we just believe them. If there's no evidence, like that's not.
You should be innocent and proven guilty in everything.
Yeah, and so it's like I think you should press charges if that happened.
Okay, yeah.
And if not, you're going to go on a public platform and destroy a man's reputation without any like evidence. I can't just believe you if I don't know you.
I guess it's a society we live in now, like cancel culture. They feel like sometimes it's easier to go online and do that. You get a better result by doing that. Because I had to look at it at one time, like, why wouldn't you rather just go to the police rather than you coming online doing it? But I guess now it's like cancel culture is easier. But the ones that are coming with fake stories, then I'm just like,
well, I don't know what's fake and what's real, but it seems disingenuous to me if you're too scared to go to police, but you're brave enough to come and talk about it on my podcast.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I misunderstood the question.
Like I'm not saying like some women aren't scared to go to police. I know that happens, but it's just like it's odd to me.
Yeah. Sorry, I misunderstood.
No, you're okay. You're okay. I know that abuse but the other thing that's crazy about abuse is actually the majority of the time they're hitting each other. And that's a lot of times girls like they forget to talk about this.
Yeah.
Where the majority of abusive relationships, they're both hitting each other. So they'll say, "Oh, I was abused," and I'll be like, "Okay, did you hit him?" Yes. So you were abusing each other.
But we use our advantage.
Yeah, as a
because
woman.
laws are for us in this country. So if I say he was beating me up 2 minutes ago, people are going to believe that. They're going to believe it because I'm a woman. And also that's the disadvantage. I'm a female. So that's not a good thing. But unfortunately, a lot of women do use it to their advantage though.
Yeah, and you can hit first. And then he hits
women always do.
Yeah, and then he hits you back, and now you're the victim. It's like if it's one-sided abuse, 70% of the time it's a woman hitting a man and not vice versa. And so knowing these stats, and when I come on these platforms, like I'm like, why don't I have men coming forward as much as women? And the only times I do, it's usually like in DMs or like messages.
I guess it's embarrassing.
Yeah,
okay.
It is. Yeah, it's like that guy that reached out to you. I think he would that's the first step, man. Like, be open. You will grow if you're willing to do it.
Yeah.
What did you say back to him? Did you reply?
I get a lot of DMs.
Okay, fair enough.
I get so many. Sometimes it's like overwhelming. I read a lot.
Have you ever had one where you did reply and you remember or no?
Yeah, I've replied to a couple. There is one guy who told me like, basically that it was really sad. Like this was one of the saddest DMs I've ever gotten. Like basically he was like addicted to hookers and he's never had a girl like interested in having sex with him ever. And he's like, I got in shape, I did this. And like, no, but not anymore. Now like it was like 2 years later, he's addicted to corn, hooker, like, you know, like bad stuff. And I was just like, damn, that would never happen to a woman. Not in the same way, you know, cause like women always have someone that wants to sleep with them, always, for the most part. And so it's like, I feel like there's a level of loneliness that women just don't understand, or like we will never understand, because like I don't think that would ever happen to me or any woman I know. It was really sad.
It is sad, but I do believe there's a way out for a lot of guys.
I do. That's why I responded. I was like, okay, you should try this, and that. But then it was like, I'm despair, and I'm like, okay, I don't know how else to.
Yeah, it's like this isn't my job. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how else to help you. I'm like trying to give you some.
What do you think is the solution, though?
The solution to modern dating.
Yeah.
I think the laws have to change. That's what I think. I think if we want to incentivize men to get married again, the laws have to change.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel like all our problems would go away if we got rid of birth control, but I don't see that happening. I think that's like the root of everything.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. But
go ahead.
Oh gosh.
What do you think?
How do I say that? I'm so happy my face is covered. I think women, they either need to lower their expectations or get out of the workforce.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because if they lower their expectations and the income of a man is not, it doesn't need to be higher, then I think that's great. But I think once they leave the workforce, they'll have a lot more options. What's that word that they use? Like when the man makes more...
Hypergamy?
Yeah, they'll be more hypergamous that way.
I think they still have to be able to submit to a guy that makes less.
Yeah.
There are powerful CEOs that still come home and submit to their husband.
Yes.
Yes.
Like you think that Supreme Court justice in the US, I forget her name, but she's like super accomplished. I guarantee she comes home. She has like a 4 or 5 kids.
Yeah, she's really pretty.
Yeah. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I bet like ABC or something or ACB.
I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
She's pretty.
Yeah. She comes home and submits, even though she's more accomplished than her husband. But it's interesting because on this show, like I'll ask girls like, how much would a guy have to make for you to quit your job for him? And it's always like top 10%.
Yeah, but it's kind of like in the 1950s. Like if a guy made like a living like the equivalent of like minimum wage, it was still more than what she was making. So it would be normal for her to want to submit to that because she's not bringing anything in. But it's like we've come to a point where like no one's talking about like how like we can't keep going like this. Like like women say they want a guy that makes more, then why are you like saying that women need to chase the bag? Like
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Like numbers wise.
Right. What do you think is the solution to modern dating?
I would say submission, number one. Understanding submission. And communication. I feel like women can still work and submit to their husband and still earn more and be able to submit. Because God forbid you're married and your husband is sick and he's the breadwinner. And even if, for example, you're not out working, but he's making money and you have your own little side hustle or something, just as long as you're getting some sort of income, that's very important. Because as I said before, the woman is a helper. How are you going to help your husband in that time? You're eventually going to have to go out and work. And in that moment, it's a moment where women can get big-headed, like, okay, cool, I'm the head of the house now. I'm making all the money. I'm supporting you. But once you submit and understand that you're here to help and it's only for a short period of time, then yeah, I'd think that submission, understanding each other's roles in a relationship, communication, also lowering your standards a little bit sometimes. Not expect, like, why would you ask a guy to have this and that, and you barely have nothing to amount to that? Like, come on, be realistic.
It's like, Diane, you make $25,000 a year. You want a guy that makes 6 figures?
Do you get me? Like, it does not make sense.
Diane!
It does not make sense, but yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think to just piggyback off of that, I think flipping the whole idea of settling, right? Because if you ultimately want to be with a man, right? If you're sleeping with a bunch of guys who are, the top of the top, but none of them want to commit to you, I see that as settling, because all you're settling for is sleeping around. If you want a long-term commitment. And I will also speak from a guy's perspective, because we are playing the game we're playing. You got to play it, man. You got to level up. So like that's what I've done in my life and try to continue to do, and it does work. It does work, and I do think, like I just said, like just being realistic. If and the last thing is to tie in with being realistic. I think we should communicate more about body clock, because I don't think a lot of people know this about losing. I think it's losing 90% of your
90% of your eggs are gone by 30.
By 30, like. So many people.
Geriatric pregnancy starts at 35, and if you want to do that, you have to have $20,000 of cash ready to go, and it might not even work.
Like, what if you had that on a? I know this sounds crazy, but imagine it was on a dating app. Like, you set up a profile, and it goes, "What do you want? I want marriage. Okay, yeah. How old are you? Cool. This is your probable biological clock. Maybe you should go get your eggs checked, because that's actually what you want. You don't want to date around and sleep with a bunch of guys, because that's actually you've just answered the form. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like, because a lot of times I think, like, women will be, like, I'll have girls on my show, they'll be, like, 30, 31, 32. And it's like, if you want to have kids, you, like, how long are you going to date the guy before you have kids? It's like, you might want to get in, like, they're still, I'm having fun. Like, I don't know what, and it's like, okay, time's ticking.
Yeah, it's true. Because I've got a friend who's out there on the streets dating in their 40s, and she's enjoying the dating experience. But as I said to her, you kind of past that, really. You've got to know what you want, how to get it.
Yeah.
And I think women really sometimes don't know. We're full of contradictions. We say we might want a dating experience, but at the same time, we're thinking about a lifetime partner. But how do you get that through just doing that?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I
Being serious about it.
Yeah.
And I think women, sometimes we can fluctuate. Sometimes we want a man, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just, because we're not getting what we want, we then add other things onto the list of things that I'm not getting and the reason why I'm not getting that.
Would you, ladies in the room, if you knew that stat ahead of time, would that have changed your dating choices? So I'm assuming you didn't know that stat. Maybe you did, but I didn't know that stat. I knew that you lost your eggs over time, but I didn't know it was as bad as that. So do you think it would have maybe changed your dating choices if you knew that? I'm assuming you maybe want kids, right?
The chat's telling me it's 80%.
Okay.
I could be wrong.